The Attorney General in America, William Barr, has said the Justice Department has not uncovered evidence of widespread voter fraud that would change the outcome of the US presidential election. President Trump's campaign says there hasn't been any semblance of an investigation. Joe Biden's introduced his choice for his top economic team, including the first ever female Treasury Secretary. He says they were working on a coronavirus relief package to roll out after he takes office in January. German officials say 4 people were killed when a homeless man drove the borrowed car he'd been living in through a pedestrian zone in the southwestern city of Trier at lunchtime. One victim was a 9-month-old baby. And police in Sweden have arrested a woman on suspicion of holding her son captive for up to 30 years. The son in his 40s was found covered in sores and with other injuries too.
Pfizer's partner BioNTech and U.S. drug maker Moderna both submitted their coronavirus vaccines for approval in the European Union. The companies earlier filed similar submissions with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. European health regulators say they'll work through Christmas to review the data. They're expected to make a decision on at least one of the vaccines by the end of the month. Federal stimulus negotiations are showing renewed signs of life. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin plan to restart relief talks in a phone conversation this afternoon. Meanwhile, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is rolling out a $908 billion aid proposal. That's according to people familiar with the plans. And the National Retail Federation says more than 100 million people shopped online on Black Friday. That's up 8% from last year. And the number of in-store shoppers fell by more than a third. Concern over the rise in COVID-19 cases also pushed in-store shopping lower on Thanksgiving Day, falling 55% from last year.
Where there are more troubling signs, the coronavirus situation is taking a turn for the worse. Authorities reported 41 deaths on Tuesday, while the number of seriously ill cases has risen to nearly 500. Both are record highs.
The number of people in serious condition tends to lag behind new cases. So the fact that serious ones have increased to nearly 500 means we're facing a sense of crisis.
The health minister is also urging local governments to secure enough hospital beds. He says COVID-19 patients who do not require hospitalization should be quarantined in designated facilities, including hotels, to free up resources. The head of the country's medical association visited Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide to offer his advice.
I told Prime Minister Suga that taking measures for seriously ill patients is crucial, as the numbers are expected to rise further. I also told him that we can control the infections if we take action quickly enough.
Nakagawa says Suga pledged to do whatever it takes to contain the virus. The biggest hotspot is Tokyo. More than a quarter of total cases nationwide have been confirmed in the capital. Officials reported over 370 cases on Tuesday in the city of 14 million. Metropolitan government officials want local hospitals to increase the number of beds for seriously ill patients from 150 to 200 to meet the growing demand. Tokyo Governor Koike Yuriko also visited the Prime Minister to talk about the central government's subsidy program for domestic travel. They stopped short of excluding the capital, but they're asking seniors and people with underlying health issues to avoid using the program for trips to and from Tokyo. Health authorities across the nation reported over 2,000 new cases on Tuesday, bringing the overall tally to more than 150,000. Over 2,200 people have died. Now, the United Nations estimates a record 235 million people worldwide will require humanitarian aid next year, mainly due to the pandemic. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs released a report on Tuesday on humanitarian assistance, including food distribution and vaccinations. The report said more people were losing their jobs and unable to eat properly because of the virus spreading globally. It noted the most vulnerable 160 million people will require $35 billion in aid. They include those in Yemen and Syria, where civil wars continue. UN humanitarian chief Mark Lowcock spoke to NHK in an interview. He called on Japan and the international community for financial assistance.
Those richer countries, including countries like Japan, can expect, I think, to see significant economic recovery next year. But I'm not sure that's the case for the very poorest countries, because they don't have the resources to get their economies going again.
Lowcock added there's a risk of a growing divergence between countries that face a chronic humanitarian crisis and the rest of the world. Meanwhile, UNICEF says about 1.3 billion of the world's school-aged children do not have the internet at home, possibly depriving them of educational opportunities. The figure amounts to about 2/3 of those aged 3 to 17. The situation is especially severe in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, where about 90% are going without home internet access. UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore warns the situation is costing them their futures. UNICEF also says about 250 million children have to take online classes because of school closures caused by the pandemic. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden is pressing forward with preparations for the transition of power. He's named the top members of his economic team. 4 of the 6 picks are women. Former Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen has been nominated to be Treasury Secretary. If confirmed, she'll be the first woman to assume the post since the Treasury Department was founded in 1789. Labor economist Cecilia Rouse was chosen to be the chair of the Council of Economic Advisers, a presidential advisory body. Biden is facing calls from within the Democratic Party to assign posts to progressives. The president-elect has yet to name the Secretary of Defense or the members of his trade team. The transition process appears to be progressing steadily. U.S. media say Biden has begun to receive presidential daily briefs, which include highly classified intelligence. Biden spoke with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Monday over the phone. Biden's transition team says they discussed the need for a strengthened partnership between the U.S. and the UN on urgent global issues. The Secretary General's spokesperson says Guterres looks forward to working with Biden to address the pandemic, climate change, and other pressing issues. Meanwhile, the states of Wisconsin and Arizona have officially certified results of last month's presidential vote, declaring Biden the winner. The move deals another blow to President Donald Trump's efforts to contest the results. Russia's military has conducted surface-to-air missile drills on at least one of 4 islands claimed by Japan. Russia's Eastern Military District says the S-300 air defense system was moved from a location in the country's Far East. Officials released a video of it being operated on the island of Etorofu, one of the islands controlled by Russia and claimed by Japan. The S-300 is designed to shoot down both fighter jets and missiles. It has a range of about 400 kilometers. Russia has also deployed surface-to-ship missiles on Etorofu and on Kunashiri, another of the 4 islands. This is the first time it's used the S-300 in drills on the islands, which Japan calls the Northern Territories. The Japanese government maintains the islands are an inherent part of Japan's territory. It says the islands were illegally occupied after World War II. The country has repeatedly protested Russia's military buildup on the islands. Moving now to a cultural feud playing out in the kitchen. South Korean and Chinese social media users are heating up an online battle over the spicy fermented cabbage dish, kimchi. China recently won a global certification from the International Organization for Standardization for Chinese pickles known as Pao Cai. China's state-run media reported it as an international standard for the kimchi industry led by China. Despite the ISO clearly mentioning the standard does not apply to kimchi, the comments sparked an immediate backlash in South Korea, where kimchi is a traditional staple of the national cuisine. Some Chinese posters said kimchi is a traditional Chinese food because most of the kimchi consumed in South Korea is made in China. But South Koreans see more than just a clash over cabbage.
I read a media story that China now says kimchi is theirs, and that they are making international standard for it. I'm worried that they might steal other cultural content, not just kimchi.
South Korea's agriculture ministry also weighed in on the culinary fight, mentioning in a statement on Sunday the ISO-approved standard does not apply to kimchi. Members of the popular K-pop group BTS will likely be able to postpone military duty after South Korean lawmakers passed the bill to revise the country's military service law. South Korean men are required to join the military by the age of 28 in principle, but exemptions are made for outstanding athletes. Tuesday's revision could add the highly acclaimed pop culture artist to the list of those allowed deferrals. Many of the group's fans had been calling for a revision to the law, as its oldest member is 27. Local media say the revision will likely allow BTS members to postpone enlisting until the age of 30. The members say they will do their military duty at some point. Now, fans are welcoming the revision, but some people say the group should not be given special treatment. The 7-member group this year became the first from South Korea to top the U.S. Billboard music chart with the single Dynamite. Next, Japanese astronaut Noguchi Soichi has been getting a taste of home on the International Space Station. He ate a can of mackerel and soy sauce prepared by Japanese high school students.
大変美味しいです。美味しい。ね、こういう感じで、高校生の皆さん、ありがとうございます。
The canned mackerel was developed by students at Wakasa High School in Fukui Prefecture, central Japan. The school's original space food is the result of 14 years of research and development by generations of students. It cleared strict standards on changes in gravity and pressure, as well as long-term preservation. Japan's space agency JAXA certified it as a space food in 2018.
普通ね、こういう缶のやつだと開けるときにこうプシュッと汁が出てきちゃったりするんですけど、これは大変優秀であんまりそういうのが出てきません。
Noguchi said space food needs variety. He also said a balanced diet, including fish and vegetables, is important for both nutrition and mental well-being.
I'm happy Mr. Noguchi ate a lot and said it was delicious.
I'm very glad that the canned mackerel went into space, and Mr. Noguchi said it will boost his well-being.
Noguchi is using YouTube and social media platforms to report on his daily life during his 6-month stay on the space station.